Hi, this is Borge, and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while. I think I last made a video 2 or 3 years ago, and to be honest with all of you, I don't feel so comfortable right now, but I know I made a Facebook post or I made a video where I promised to all of you that I'll be back and I'll be making videos again. So here I am fulfilling that promise. I hope all of you are doing well. I am doing well. There were just so many changes in my life in the previous 2 or 3 years, especially this year. But I'm good and I hope you are too. For our very first lesson in this channel, after a long pause or after a long while, is learning English as an adult. Because as an ESL teacher, I taught adult students, and I noticed that they have quite several struggles compared to students who are still in school. As adults, they usually have problems with resources, confidence, and things like that, while having the feeling like they're running out of time because they're already in their 30s, 40s, or 50s. Let me share bits of my own experiences first. When I was a student, like for example, when I was in high school, I I remember struggling as well in English. I knew that I had a good understanding, but still compared to other students who I know was at my age that time, I wasn't that good enough yet. Even when I was in college, take note, my course is Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English. Well, having that degree, you would expect that someone taking that course is already good enough in English and someone who can already speak in English fluently, because we're just supposed to focus more on how to teach English to other people and not learning English as a language. I do remember being commended from time to time by my classmates. There would be people who would tell me I sounded good, but I knew in myself that I wasn't that good enough. After college, I even remember applying to certain BPO companies and ESL schools and being rejected a couple of times because of how I spoke English that time. The common feedback I received during that time was I had regional accent. It's actually when I first learned that I sounded differently in that I had regional accent, and that's when I started focusing more on my pronunciation and how I deliver, how I speak English. There's this one funny story when I called my good friend. If you know Ma'am Charlene from Charlene's TV, I remember contacting her, messaging her that time, and I told her to practice speaking English with me because I was very frustrated back then. I was applying to different schools, ESL schools that time. I even tried BPO. I got really frustrated and I asked her to practice speaking English with me. It's very awkward, especially if you're, friends and you can just speak in Filipino and have conversations in Filipino. But I asked her for a favor to speak with me in English during that time. I remember how awkward that felt and how embarrassed I was. Because imagine, that's after graduation. That's after I studied Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English. While sharing this, I also want to emphasize to those who are adults and still learning English now that age doesn't really matter and no one will judge you for still learning English even after you graduate college, even when you're already in your 30s or 40s. That's perfectly fine. That's I think, one of my takeaways from that experience. There's nothing to be embarrassed about when it comes to learning a language or learning English, even when you're already an adult. By the way, I would also like to know, what's your motivation in learning English? I want you to leave that in the comments. What I heard from my students, their motivation is obviously career progression, professional growth. Some of them would like to travel and just confidently talk with more people because, well, English is our universal language. Some of them do study English because they want to study abroad and they have to take certain English examinations. I'm curious about you who is watching this video. What's your motivation in learning English? I want you to leave that in the comment section. My motivation these days is writing. I really do want to learn more English words. That's one of my biggest struggles these days. I know in myself that I have to learn more words in English for me to be more expressive, to be more concise in expressing my ideas, my thoughts and feelings, because I'm into writing these days and I want to be able to write essays, poems like that without much difficulty, without much struggle in thinking of the right words and thinking of the right idiomatic expressions, phrases in English. Now let's talk about challenges that we usually encounter as adults learning English or learning a language. One is vocabulary. Well, English words are actually embedded already in our daily conversations. Many say that, and there are even several experiments conducted on YouTube. They conducted experiments and tried to challenge Filipinos to speak in pure Tagalog or pure Filipino. Turns out they can't, because we usually use or insert English words in our sentences. But I'm talking about vocabulary words here that are more exact. Yes, we do use English words from time to time. There are even instances when we can't think of the Filipino word for it, but I'm talking about being more precise here, more exact when it comes to saying or expressing our thoughts, our feelings, because what we usually do is we use descriptive phrases, we use other descriptive words to say something that we really want to say, resulting to us using longer sentences instead of shortening them. We can learn new words intentionally or unintentionally. So intentionally, you can download dictionaries and look up for specific words or check their word of the day. You can also download applications. I personally downloaded Elevate, this app. This is not sponsored, but I found this really, really helpful. It has word of the day and also has practices. It's really helpful, not just when you want to learn new words. It's also helpful when you want to learn more about pronunciation, grammar, writing, spelling, almost everything about learning English, actually. You can also learn English words unintentionally by exposing yourself to English content, of course. So if you're into watching movies, documentaries, random videos online, I suggest that you consume contents that are in English for you to be more exposed in English words. At the same time, the more that you listen to them, the more you get familiar with the pronunciation, the flow of their conversations, also their accents. If you want to work on that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with trying to or wanting to sound more like a native speaker. As Filipinos, even though English is our second official language, we don't normally speak in full English here, right? Unless, well, you're living in certain areas where you can have conversations in full English. But typically, we don't. So to compensate our lack of exposure to English is to, of course, intentionally consume content that are in English. Next struggle is grammar. Well, like vocabulary, we can intentionally learn grammar, but again, exposure is really, really a very helpful thing. When you listen a lot to people who are speaking in English, you also become familiar with how they construct their sentences, their grammar. That's also one thing about us Filipinos, since we learn English from books, from our teachers, obviously in schools. We sound bookish when we're speaking in English. Spoken and written English have very little differences or nuances. When we're speaking English, we sound exactly as how we write in English. That's one of the reasons why some learners say that they want to sound natural in English, because they sound like they're speaking from the books when they're using English in conversations. Allowing yourself to be exposed on spoken English through videos, TV series, movies, whatever, vlogs, YouTube vlogs, you're also exposing yourself to spoken English. And through that exposure, obviously, you're going to learn how to use English in conversations more naturally. Another challenge that we adult learners have is lack of practice. So we're done with lack of exposure. So you're consuming a lot, right? You're consuming a lot of contents in English, but we don't have anyone to talk with because I don't know. Maybe we're living alone, or maybe there's not enough opportunity for us to speak in English. So we consume a lot, but there's not much output, right? We can't speak in English still because we don't use it. We don't apply what we learn. One of the things I do these days, since we're in the age of AI, is I talk with Copilot. If you don't want Copilot or you don't have a Microsoft account, then use ChatGPT or other AI tools. They're really helpful. And I was actually surprised when I found out and when I discovered that I can actually talk with Copilot. I'm satisfied with how Copilot responds to me when I talk to it, and it gives me answers that I need. I also use it to evaluate how I sound. So if you don't have anyone to talk with, there's AI. There are applications these days that you can download and use for free. Now, if you don't want to talk with AI, and if you want to talk to a real person, I suggest joining Facebook groups, subreddits. I believe there are also groups on other social media platforms such as LinkedIn, Instagram, where you can join and look for a language exchange partner. I know how difficult it is to look for a good language exchange partner. We're not always lucky to find a good one because you have to consider your age, your interests as well, because you're going to practice or you're going to have conversations with that person at least once a week. But I suggest giving it a try. This is, I think, harder for us Filipinos because there's not much people who are interested in learning Filipino. Because when we're talking about language exchange, you teach your own language, your native language to the other person, and the other person will, in exchange, teach you their native language, right? For example, I'm Filipino, so I'll be looking for someone who's interested in learning Filipino and also a good speaker or a native speaker in English. So I know that there's not much people in the world who are interested in learning Filipino. Sad to say, but still give it a try. Who knows, you might meet someone who's willing to help you practice speaking in English. I believe there are some people out there who are still interested in learning Filipino. Commonly, those are Filipinos still, but were born in other countries, so they're not fluent in Filipino and they want to learn more. Also, people who are interested in the Philippine culture and want to learn our language. Yep, just give it a try, but be careful of who you talk with online. The last one I want to talk about is the lack of confidence. I know that it's not easy to build confidence. Language learning alone takes a decade at least to master it, right? And confidence, we can't simply build it just because we're feeling confident. I mean, for us to feel confident, we should know in ourselves that we can effectively or proficiently use a language in conversations, even in simple daily conversations, for us to feel confident, right? So we need to study hard, learn a lot, practice a lot, and eventually build confidence. I also know that not a lot of people who are already good at speaking English are already confident in their language skills. Common reason is that they don't practice a lot and there's not much people around them who tell them how good they are already. So if you know someone who's speaking English or trying to sound good in English or trying to be proficient in English, please Give them commendations. Tell them that they're doing well. Tell them they sound good. Maybe you yourself tell yourself that you're doing well, that you're doing enough, and that one day you'll eventually be proficient in speaking in English if you're not at that level yet. So, bottom line, for you to be confident, you have to practice. Okay, you have to practice a lot, whether that's with AI or with real people. And this is where I'll end my video. Again, as an adult English language learner, there's nothing to be embarrassed about, all right? That's fine. You know what? When you join these communities online, on different social media platforms, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, you will see how much adult learners are still learning different languages despite their age. You're not late or anything, believe in your own pace. And to be honest with you, even I am already an English teacher licensed already. It's been 10 years since I graduated college. I still learn English. Keep learning. And again, I want you to leave in the comments what's your motivation in learning English. Also, I want you to give me suggestions if you have. What are the English lessons or topics in language learning in general that you want me to discuss next time? Please leave them in the comments. I hope you all stay safe, keep learning, and oh, I miss saying this, dream and make your dream happen. I'll see you on my next video. Bye!